Law, storytelling for success in life and law. Smart Lawyers Position and Transition. I am Victoria Collier, and this is the Smart Lawyers Position and Transition podcast, special series, Life After Law. I am with our special guest, Kyla Denanyoh, founder of KD Creative, and today on Life After Law, we will be discussing building a brand through storytelling and podcasting. Smart Lawyers Position and Transition transforms the lives of attorneys who want better, more valuable law firms that in time can sell for real value. The information provided is not intended to be legal, financial, or any other kind of advice, just great information and entertainment. So just the other day, I was texting with a new friend and she said, "Tell me a story," which led to many stories actually, and laughter the rest of the night. I stayed up well past midnight and I should have been sleeping. But before we even had the written word, I mean, that's how people communicated. They just told stories so that it was remembered generation after generation. And that's how we memorialize things. And at some level, how they used to survive. And that can be true for our businesses as well. So today, our guest, Kyla, will be sharing with us her story on why storytelling is essential for life and business. Kyla is a lawyer, storyteller, and founder of KD Creative. After focusing on writing and editing documents in law school, Kyla fell in love with editing audio and transcribed words as a podcaster. While working and managing an IP e-commerce department, Kyla met incredible lawyers who inspired her to share their stories through podcasting. So in 2020, Kyla launched the You Are a Lawyer podcast, a platform that celebrates the diverse paths of law school graduates. Whether you're working as an artist, tech investor, or food truck owner, if you've graduated from law school, you are a lawyer. Kyla has interviewed more than 160 lawyers about the risks taken and how they've created extraordinary lives outside of the courtroom. Welcome so much, Kyla, for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. And so how would, by the end of this podcast, you consider it being a home run for our listeners?
Yeah. So I would say it's a home run if you get done listening to this and you sit down and you make a list of 5 risks that you've taken in your life. Just 5 risks. Because people, and especially lawyers and law students, do not consider themselves to be risk takers. And we take risk all the time. All the time.
Interesting, because I'm nothing but a risk taker, and I see going to law school as a risk, so being number one on that list. So how does being a risk taker, dovetail into storytelling or podcasting?
Oh, how does it not? Okay, so thank you for reading off my bio, because I think that tells a lot about the risks that I've taken, and it explains my story, right? So I go to law school. I grew up as a really creative person, go to law school. Okay, let's see what this is about. And law school really, I thought it was going to tamper a lot of my creativity, but instead it just made me creative in a different kind of way, right? Like you have to research, you have to find the law, you have to find ways to make your facts fit the case that you're looking at. I saw all of that as creativity, right? Like I'm in the legal library reading and I have fireworks going off. I'm like, oh, I can see this, oh, I can see this, oh, I can see this. But then I get out of school and I'm like, and now I just go to a big law office in a $1,000 suit, and this is it, right? Maybe I change my hair. That's the most my creativity is going to do. And so,
and at big law, don't you all look the same, talk the same, walk the same?
Yes. Pre-2020, absolutely. Now there's probably a little bit more risk, but before then, it was hair in a low bun, white shirt, gray suit. Like it was very, very formulaic. And so thankfully I was in a really cool practice. They let me show my personality. But also, I didn't know I could do that, right? I thought I had to be the lawyer that fit into this box. And so once I started to meet lawyers who were analysts, lawyers who decided, oh, I'm not going to take the bar exam, I started writing a novel. Tell me about that. Talk to me, right? And I was like, well, who else has done this? And like any lawyer, I was like, okay, most people quit podcasting around 7 episodes, so I have to make sure I surpassed that, right? I was like, I'm not going to launch until I know I'm going to succeed. I did the research. And I'm telling you, I had a waiting list immediately of people who were like, oh, I love being a lawyer, but I wanted to become a yogi. oh, I loved being a lawyer. I just also wanted to start a hair salon. What? And I found all these people. And so it was really a blessing that, like, I had that market validation before I even launched. Because I've always had people like, hey, can I tell my story? Hey, can I tell my story? Because there's a lot of people out there who are creative and also like the analytical skills of being a lawyer, myself included. And my whole life is about sharing their stories and telling people, you take risks all the time. You do cool things all the time. And your law degree has not hampered that or dampened it at all.
Well, it doesn't surprise me at all that lawyers want to talk about themselves. Now, come on. Right?
This is true. Yes. We love to talk.
And so, do you work with lawyers to help them create their story that then helps with their businesses and their marketing?
So, it depends. The lawyer answer, right? It depends. And I say that because there are a lot of lawyers who reach out to me to share their story, and they haven't done anything that I would consider cool, right? There's a fair amount of people that I say, oh, no, thank you. You've only run a law firm for 25 years. You know, are you scuba diving on the side? Like, give me some more. So I don't only work with lawyers because of that, right? But now if you're a lawyer that I consider cool, yes, I will help you craft your story, put it on the podcast, tell everybody about it. But I actually started a business, and I actually just help business owners tell their story, right? Mm-hmm. Post-pandemic, people want to know how other people live. They may have wanted to know before, but like social media gave us the inkling of it. Mm-hmm. And now it's kind of like, okay, Victoria helps sell law firms. What else does she do? Is she into real estate? Why did she get into this? Like, people want to know that second story. They want to know the background. They want to know more about it. And so I help business owners start podcasts and literally just tell their stories. And we've been able to attract multiple streams of income for these business owners. Their client base has become more committed and more engaged because they're like, I didn't know that was why she started selling law firms. Now I absolutely love Victoria. I will always be her customer, right? So yeah. I find that just telling your story as a business owner, whether you're a lawyer or not, helps to create that engaged audience.
Well, interesting. You should ask. I owned a hemp farm and grew hemp.
Wow.
And made CBD. So now I have goats. But yeah, people are fascinated more by that than anything else. And yeah. So how do you integrate like work, life, these stories? Because we can compartmentalize so much. Like, for example, I am a veteran, was in the service. I was a lawyer. I am a farmer. I'm a mom. How do you have one integrated thread through all of these things as people are telling their stories?
Ooh. So the one integrated thread, I want to say, is me. Is that an answer?
You're the thread that weaves them all together. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I would say, my mind. Okay, so off the top of my head, my work ethic is the thread that runs between it all, right? I worked 1 million hours as a lawyer. I work 1 million hours for my own business. I work 1 million hours for the podcast. I actually now I have 2 virtual assistants for the podcast, and that's only because my actual business is doing well and I needed time to focus on that. But I've never been a stranger to hard work. So it's like, okay, if the partner wants all these hours, I'll give it. My podcast, I gave it all the hours, which I just hit 4 years. And so that took a lot of my hours for a really long time. I mean, I have a 4-year-old, so it's like, okay, she goes to bed at 9:30. I'm still up until 1 o'clock getting stuff done. So yeah, the thread I would say is hard work and then just myself because it's my story.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. It sounds like you birthed 2 babies at one time, You have 2 4-year-olds.
No, literally. I started recording in February 2020, already pregnant. Launched the show in April after I recorded that 8th episode and my daughter was born in June. First child, and I was like, pregnancy, people have been having babies for thousands of years. I could start a podcast at the same time, right? And I've kept it going, but I lost a lot of sleep at the same time.
Yeah. And so when did you decide that, are you still practicing law, or is this what you do full time?
No, I actually left in March 2021. So right now, my full-time job is launching stories for other people, creating their stories.
Outstanding. And so you did what we see sometimes out there. You had a side gig, and then your side gig became your permanent thing. So tell us, what you do with this, helping people tell their stories. What's that process look like? And when would somebody identify they need to come and see you and have you help them?
Yeah. Come and see me today. As soon as you get done listening, call me, look up the website, right? Because if you have a business, if you are working for someone else, if you are alive, you need to market what you do. You need to tell other people. I am telling you right now, Victoria, hey, this is what I do. You're telling me, so now my audience gets introduced to you, your audience gets introduced to me. This is marketing. An interview is marketing. Walking through the checkout line. Hey, Janelle, how's your day? Marketing. Life is marketing, okay? So someone would call me if they are bored with posting on social media, if they're bored with sending their regular newsletter, or if their client sales aren't growing, right? You keep selling to the same people, reach out to me, because I will help you start that podcast, and then you can identify your ideal audience. And once you start talking to that audience, they become your customers, right? So I'm talking, I have a dermatologist whose podcast I'm managing. I'm working with an ophthalmologist right now. I've worked with children's book authors, personal finance coaches. You need to get in the ears of your ideal customer, and you do that with podcasting. So call me right now. The other part is, what do I do all day? So I am a full-time creative, and it's taken me a long time to say that, and I love it. But creativity looks differently. So when I'm not guesting, when I'm not being a guest on other people's shows like I'm doing right now, I am managing my own editors. I'm managing my virtual assistants to make sure things are running and going smoothly. Because my podcast started as a bi-weekly show, and for the last 2 years, it's been a weekly show. So that's a lot of fun. I record YouTube book reviews. They come out every Monday because I love books, fiction and nonfiction books, so I'm always doing that. I'm preparing for a YouTube course where I teach people how to podcast, right? Maybe you can't afford to hire me to be your editor and your manager, so you just want to know how to do it on your own. So my day looks like sitting here at my desk, recording, reading books, editing, or sending emails. And it took $300,000 in debt from law school to become a full-time creative, but I wouldn't have changed it at all because, there were so many people who were like, Kyla, you're a lawyer. You already are successful. Why would you do something else? And I literally had to sell them on, well, this is why, because I'm a lawyer. I can do anything, right? So I'm like 100% committed now. This is what I do.
And so, people can do this on their own. What's the advantage of hiring a podcast company versus them doing it on their own?
First advantage is sleep. You do not have to do everything on your own, which means you can sleep, okay? For the first 3 years, I didn't even have podcast tasks in my calendar because there was no choice of it not getting done, right? It doesn't matter if I would leave the office at 8:30. I knew if the episode is up on Thursday, come hell or high water, by 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday was going to be up. So I didn't even need to put it in my calendar. It didn't matter. Now I have it in my calendar because I work with a coach and, editors, and so I need to make sure I have things done at the right time. So the first advantage is literally that you don't have to spend your entire life doing all of the pieces. You find the guest, you do the editing, you do the recording, you do the post stuff, you do all of the stuff. You don't have to do that, right? Your time is valuable. Your time is really important, even if that means taking your valuable and important time and using it to spend time with your kids, or time to just watch TV, or time to just go for a walk, right? The part that you have to do as a podcaster is the recording. That's probably 15 to 20% of everything else, right? And so you hire a manager, you hire someone else to produce your show so that you only have to focus on the 20% and they can focus on the other 80% that makes your show run.
Amen to that. And let's face it, lawyers by nature were problem solvers and things like that, which are transferable skills, but not necessarily the, creating my own podcast isn't the highest, best use of those skills, right?
Yeah. So. Not the best use of those skills often, and it's also not the best use of your time a lot of the time, right? It's like, okay, if I could do 7 other things, why don't I do that? Why would I make it a priority to sit down and record? because you make it a priority. You have to do it. I can't tell you it's important right now. Once you have a couple of episodes, you get monetized, that second stream of income might make you see that it's important. But if you're not tapped into the fact that telling your story is valuable, you're not going to do the rest, right? And so that's where I get them at the beginning when saying, hey, I can help you. I can coach you into launching your show. You've launched with 5 episodes. Now that you're committed and you love doing it, let me do the rest. Literally, the company's called Skip the Boring Stuff. Yeah. Let me do all of that. All you have to do is show up and record, because I can't make them care if you can't even do the recording part, right? So podcasting's not for everyone, but television wasn't for everyone. Fiction books aren't for everyone. Like, that's okay. And also, podcasting's only like 15 years old. It's going to be around for a really long time. So,
well, what would you say to somebody that says, well, there's a lot of objections I have that I want to, not that I have, but that I hear, because clearly I don't have any objections. I'm on a podcast. But let's say you hear someone say that, well, my story's not that special. As you said, sometimes they're not that special. But isn't everybody's story, we're all unique. What if they say my story's just not that special?
Yeah, so I was laughing because your story is very unique and important to you. Mm-hmm. That's what matters, right? When you decide that you want to start a podcast, you are deciding you've either listened to enough or you've heard from enough people that your story hasn't been shared, right? Okay. Because you could do a podcast where you were just talking about something that you heard someone say somewhere. You would quit. You would be bored with it yourself, right? And so if you don't have an angle, a perspective, anything that you want to share, you wouldn't have the urge to podcast, right? If you don't really have that desire, I don't want to run like Tom Brady, so I'm not going to try to. But if you have that inkling, that urge to say, wow, I bet podcasting could be cool, you probably already have an idea that you want to share. And that's where a coach or listening to other podcasts can kind of urge you and give you that nudge to be like, okay, so before this, you had a hemp farm and you had goats. Why goats, right? Why not cows? Did you have any bulls? Well, who else did you know who had goats? And if your mind doesn't take you there, you probably don't want a podcast. And that's what we do,
yeah.
Right?
All right, so here's the second one, and that is, okay, fine. So I have a really neat story, and I'd love to share it with everybody. But after I've done that, how do I get past 7 episodes? My story is just 1 episode long, Yeah. So what would I possibly talk about?
Oh my gosh, everything. Because you are familiar with your story because it's yours, right? I'm not familiar with your story. Even if you sat down and said, I woke up today and turned on my computer. What was the first thing that you saw on your computer? Did you trip on your way to finding your computer? Did you have your cord? Was your computer unplugged, right? And if your mind doesn't take you to all these questions, that's why you have to work with a podcast producer or editor, because I'll ask you all the questions. I want to know all the story. I want to know everything. What's that picture behind you? Where did it come from? Did you travel to the location? How did you meet the artist, right? And if your mind doesn't go there, and it doesn't have to, and that's okay, then you'll want to work with someone like a podcast manager or a podcast editor who can pull those things out of you.
My guess is most lawyers are not creatives, and so their minds probably don't go that deep into those questions. Yeah. But you at some point gave yourself permission to enjoy the life that you wanted. Yeah. How do you do that for others?
Oh, man, I love doing this for others because you can see it in their face when the light bulb turns on, right? So you talk to someone, well, there's 2 things. Okay, so I'm not the least expensive option for launching a podcast. So if you think, I think I could do this $35 a week, great. You're going to be like, oh, no, she's thousands? Maybe I'm not that committed. So first of all, you have the commitment and you're willing to put your money where your mind is, okay? So you pay me the money and you say, okay, Kyla, so I don't think my story is that interesting, but I have this great business and I want more customers. And then we literally sit down and have 6 sessions and I say, why did you start the business? Who are you working with now? What is your competitor's biggest issue? What's your issue with finding more clients, right? I'm pulling out all those details because I'm the new one. I'm the person who, if I just found your website, would be saying, why is this here? Why these colors? Why does that matter, right? And so I literally will pull that information out of you, and you can see it where my clients, like, the light bulb goes off and they're like, so you really think someone thinks it's important that when I was in high school, I didn't like my skin and now I'm a dermatologist? Yes, I do. I promise you. Because I get a lot of, I go to events and people say, well, you don't look like a lawyer. Great. Mm-hmm. Great. Because you haven't met every lawyer in the world, and I am a lawyer. So now we can start talking some more, right? Mm-hmm. Like, as you can hear, I am very committed to this because I think it's so fascinating. I think people are incredibly interesting. But if you want to podcast, all you need to do is connect with the right person, and they'll turn on that light and they'll pull it all out of you.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue into how can people get in touch with you so that their stories can be told so that they can connect with their customers and get more and more and more of them.
Yes. So if you want to connect with me, go to my website, which is skiptheboringstuff.com. Everything is spelled the regular way. skiptheboringstuff.com. skiptheboringstuff.com, where you can see where I launch podcasts for business owners, and I also will maintain your podcast if you have an existing podcast. If you also just think, Kyla's kind of cool, you can visit KylaDenanyoh.com, and that's where I have a collection of everything, right? There's blogs about my book reviews. The book review links are listed. You also can see about my entrepreneurial journey, and it also is tagged to the You Are a Lawyer podcast, and I'm pointing to the shirt that I'm wearing because also if you're a lawyer and you meet any of these criteria, you can also visit You Are a Lawyer, and you can say, hey, let me find out what these 160 other lawyers have been doing with their careers since they left.
Well, I do think you're cool, and I do want to visit that one. So why don't you spell your last name for everybody
Yes.
So when we visit that site?
Yes. So feel free to visit KylaDenanyoh.com. My last name is spelled D, E as in Echo, N-A, N-Y-O as in Oscar, H. DENANYOH.com.
Outstanding. So do you think we hit a home run today?
Of course. Of course.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I think this is inspiring, and I just love your energy, and it just makes me want to start a whole different podcast. I don't even know what it would be, but I'm sure I have other stories out there. I could do one just on hemp and farming.
I mean, I would listen to that because I think it's fascinating. My husband is Ghanaian, and that's where my last name comes from, and they use a lot of goat milk and like goat products and stuff, and I've never thought about goats at all until being married, and now I would listen to that show.
Well, that's funny because I have goats. You think about goats, and Jen has a goat picture in her bathroom. So
there you go. Look at the universe.
I know it. So anyway, thank you so much. We have been speaking with Kyla Denanyoh, founder of KD Creative. Tune in for our next Life After Law series, which will be posted once a month on the fourth Thursday of every month. Smart Lawyers Position and Transition provides you with great information. Life After Law provides you with great inspiration. Become a serious listener and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Additionally, become a member of our private Facebook group called The Art of Buying and Selling Law Firms, where you will get the registration links to free seminars for members and other great information. And lawyers do not have to have any present interest in selling their law firms to become a member. You can get more information about Quid Pro Quo and myself, Victoria Collier, your host, at our website, quidproquolaw.com. You have been listening to Smart Lawyers Position and Transition, Life After Law series. The show is available 24/7 online anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as on our website, quidproquolaw.com.